It's funny how we overcomplicate things, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to selling. It's about shifting your focus from rushing to the close and like guiding your prospect through a series of micro decisions.
So instead of that hard sell, you're creating like smaller yeses.
Exactly. It's like a journey of smaller steps.
Yeah,
It's more enjoyable, less stressful for both people.
that makes a lot of sense. And this is where it gets really interesting because this actually taps into the psychology of like how we as people make decisions.
Yeah. Tell me more.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, an intense exploration of how you show up in life, business, and relationships, and how they're all connected in the infinite thread that is you. So let's get into the dive. Here's your hosts, Marcus and Nara.
Thanks for joining us here on the Deep Dive. I'm Nara Daniels.
And I'm Marcus Harrison.
Let's dive in.
Right. So today we're gonna flip the script on how we think about selling. Like really turn it upside down.
I like it.
We're talking those counterintuitive strategies,
Yeah.
the ones that make you go, wait, is it really that simple? Have I been like making this way harder than it needs to be?
Yeah.
We're going to be diving deep into the mind of sales coach, Coach Dan Gordon.
Okay.
And he believes that most people are doing exactly that when it comes to selling.
It's funny how we overcomplicate things, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to something like selling.
Total.
And so much pressure to get to the yes, and you kind of forget about the journey,
Yeah.
the connection, the human element of it all.
So what is that secret? Like how do we take that pressure off?
Well, imagine you're enjoying a delicious meal, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to just shove the entire plate in your mouth just to get it over with, right?
Of course not. You savor every bite.
Exactly. You want to enjoy each bite, appreciate the flavors, the textures, the whole experience, right?
Okay. I'm already intrigued.
Yeah, and that's exactly the analogy Coach Dan uses.
Okay.
He calls it savoring every bite.
Savoring every bite.
Yeah. And it's about shifting your focus from rushing to the close and like guiding your prospect through a series of micro decisions.
So instead of that hard sell, you're creating like smaller yeses.
Exactly. It's like a journey of smaller steps.
Yeah.
It's more enjoyable, less stressful for both people.
That makes a lot of sense. And this is where it gets really interesting because this actually taps into the psychology of like how we as people make decisions.
Yeah.
Like we tend to think that decisions are purely logical,
Right.
but research shows that emotions actually drive the vast majority of our choices,
Yeah.
like 75, 80%.
That's huge.
It's huge, right?
Yeah.
So all those like product specs and bullet points, those things that we traditionally focus on in sales,
Yeah.
those are only a small part of the equation.
Yeah. It's like, think about it this way. They're like the participation trophies of sales.
Oh, I like that.
They get you in the game,
Right.
but they don't win you the prize.
So if logic is not the primary driver, like where do we even begin? What's that first bite that we should be savoring?
What's the very first decision a prospect makes when they interact with you?
I guess I would assume that they're evaluating my product, my service, seeing if it meets their needs.
Yeah, that's what we'd like to believe.
Right.
But that first decision is actually much more simple and way more primal.
Oh, okay.
They decide to meet with you because on some level, they like you.
It all comes down to likability.
It might sound surprising,
Yeah.
but remember, emotions are at play here.
Okay.
There are probably tons of other people offering similar products and services, but they chose you.
Yeah.
This initial choice often boils down to something as simple as your personality, your energy, your genuine interest in them.
So we're not just like presenting a product. We're building a connection.
Exactly.
This is really making me rethink how I approach these conversations.
And this is where Coach Dan, I think, gets really insightful. He challenges us to look inward and consider our own likability and self-worth. Because if you don't genuinely believe in yourself and the value you offer, it's going to be tough to project that confidence and make others see it too.
That's such a good point because it's not just about the product or service. It's about what you as a person bring to the table.
Precisely. And so let's say you've cleared that first hurdle. Someone likes you enough to give you their time.
All right.
The next micro decision you need to guide them toward is trust.
So we're going beyond just that initial like spark of likability and now building a deeper sense of trust.
Exactly. And it's not just about proving you're competent, although that's important too. It's about that deeper level of trust that makes them feel comfortable moving forward with you.
So how do we cultivate that kind of trust right from the start?
He really emphasizes the power of simple yet often overlooked actions. Showing up on time, being prepared, and truly listening to what your prospect has to say.
Those seem pretty straightforward, though. Are we missing something there?
It's about going beyond just passive listening.
Okay.
Active listening is key here. Mirroring their language, reflecting their concerns, and showing genuine engagement.
So it's about creating a space where they feel heard and understood.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And here's a counterintuitive tip. Don't be afraid to express your own opinions, even if they differ from your prospects.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because I always thought the goal was to just agree with everything and avoid any kind of conflict.
That's a common misconception.
Yeah.
Remember, we're trying to build trust.
Right.
And that means being authentic.
Okay.
When you respectfully disagree or offer an alternative perspective, it shows you're actively thinking and engaged, not just blindly agreeing to get the sale.
So you're a real person with thoughts and ideas, not just a sales robot.
Exactly. Coach Dan offers this great example. Imagine a client says, I really want my logo to be blue. Instead of just saying, blue is a great choice, a more authentic approach would be to dig deeper. You might say, I understand why you like blue, but have you considered how red might even be more impactful for your brand? Here's why.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's about having a real conversation and building that connection.
Precisely. And once you've laid that foundation of likability and trust, you're ready for the next stage.
Okay.
Showcasing your expertise and building your authority.
This is definitely different than those high-pressure sales tactics we've all come to know.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So how do we position ourselves as the expert without coming across as arrogant or pushy?
Well, this is where we bring in the power of storytelling.
Okay. I love a good story.
Yeah, and it's such a brilliant strategy for showcasing your expertise without overwhelming the prospect.
Tell me more about how storytelling fits into this whole approach.
Well, stories allow prospects to actually experience your expertise without feeling pressured.
Instead of bombarding them with facts and figures,
Yeah.
they're painting a picture for them.
Exactly. You're taking them on a journey and helping them visualize how you can solve their problems.
I can get behind that. A story is way more engaging than just a list of features and benefits.
Absolutely. And Coach Dan has this really interesting technique he calls the mythical client technique.
Mythical client technique, what is that?
Okay, so instead of name-dropping specific clients, you create composite stories that resonate with your prospect's needs.
Oh, okay.
You're essentially taking elements from your past experiences and weaving them into a story that feels tailor-made for the person you're talking to.
That's clever. So it's a way to showcase your experience without revealing any confidential client information.
Exactly. Imagine you're discussing a potential project with a client, right?
Yeah.
You could say something like, I worked with a client just like this a few years ago who was facing similar challenges. They were struggling with X, Y, and Z. Let me share what I did for them.
And that few years ago subtly implies experience and a track record.
Exactly.
Without being boastful.
Exactly. And I know what you might be thinking. Is this ethical? Does this feel like I'm making things up?
Right.
It's not about lying. It's about crafting narratives that engage your prospect and help them connect with the value you offer.
Okay.
It's like the difference between watching The Sound of Music versus a documentary about the Von Trapp family.
Right. The Sound of Music is a way more entertaining and engaging experience, even if it takes some creative liberties.
Exactly. And in sales, just like storytelling, sometimes you need to shape the narrative to create an experience that resonates, but you always got to stay true to the core message and the genuine value you offer.
This is all making a lot of sense.
Good.
We've built that foundation of likability and trust.
Yeah.
We've showcased our expertise through storytelling.
Yeah.
So what's next? How do we actually start moving toward that close?
This is where Coach Stan introduces his buckets framework.
Buckets. Okay.
It's a brilliant visual analogy for understanding how to guide a prospect towards that, yes. He says, to successfully move toward the sale, you need to fill 4 buckets.
Okay, what are they?
Likability, trust, authority, and expertise.
So the first 2 we've kind of already hit on.
We've covered those.
But what about authority and expertise? How do we get those buckets filled?
Authority comes from confidently demonstrating your knowledge,
Okay.
while expertise is showcased through your experience and the stories you share.
So they're getting filled as we move through the conversation.
Exactly. He cautions against bringing up price too early,
Oh, why is that?
because doing so can trigger fear and resistance.
Oh, yeah.
The prospect hasn't yet had the chance to fully understand and appreciate your value.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But once those buckets are full, once you've established likability, trust, authority, and expertise, you've earned the right to be direct.
Okay.
Think of it like a brain surgeon advising life-saving surgery.
Okay.
They don't need to beat around the bush or sugarcoat things.
Right.
They have the authority and expertise to confidently recommend the best course of action.
So using Coach Dan's approach, we can get to that same level of authority in our sales interaction.
Yeah.
And we're ready to unpack that moment where we shift from, building the relationship to actually like going for the sale.
It's that delicate balance, isn't it?
It is.
Where you don't want to revert back to like the old school pushy tactics.
Right.
But you got to be confident and guide them toward a decision.
Yeah. So how do we do that?
Well, we filled the buckets with likability, trust authority, and expertise.
Right. The prospect is engaged.
Yeah.
They see the value. How do you get them to that yes without being too pushy?
I think this is where boldness becomes really key.
Okay.
But it's not like the, aggressive in your face kind of boldness.
Right.
It's a quiet confidence that stems from knowing you've done the groundwork, you've nurtured the relationship, and you genuinely believe in the solution you're offering.
I like that quiet confidence.
Exactly. And this quiet confidence allows you to be direct without being forceful.
Okay.
He suggests a simple yet powerful phrase.
Okay.
He says, look, you need this. I know. Trust me, I know you know what I'm talking about.
It's like a gentle reminder of everything you've already built in the conversation.
Precisely. And even if they hesitate, they're like, well, I don't really know. You confidently reply back with, come on, yes, you do.
Yeah.
It's not about arguing or disagreeing. It's about reaffirming that understanding that you've built together.
This really challenges the old idea of the hard sell.
Yeah.
It feels more like a collaboration, like a journey you're taking together.
And I think that's the beauty of Coach Dan's approach.
Yeah.
He recognizes that decision-making is an emotional process.
It is.
So he encourages you to acknowledge the prospect's fears directly.
Okay. How do we do that?
You might say something like, I know you haven't talked with someone about this like this before.
Okay.
It's understandable that you're feeling apprehensive.
Yeah.
I get that there's a lot at stake. We all hesitate when it's time to make a big decision.
Right.
But here we are.
You're giving them permission to feel those feelings.
Yeah.
Which actually makes them feel more comfortable and understood.
Exactly. By acknowledging their fears and anxieties, you create a safe space for them to move forward with clarity rather than pressure.
This is so different from like those manipulative sales tactics that we see all the time.
Oh, totally. Coach Dan's whole philosophy is about recognizing that selling doesn't have to be a battle.
Right.
It can be this collaborative process that benefits both sides.
And this isn't just limited to sales, is it?
No, not at all.
This is like any professional interaction where you're trying to influence or persuade somebody.
Absolutely. Whether you're negotiating a contract, pitching an idea to your boss, or even trying to convince your friend to try a new restaurant.
Right.
The principles are the same.
Right.
Build rapport, understand their motivations, and present your case in a way that resonates both emotionally and logically.
Okay, so let's say we've done all that. Fill the buckets, had the conversation, address their fears.
Yeah.
And they still say no.
It happens.
Do we just walk away?
Not necessarily. One of the most important things is that no doesn't always mean never.
Okay.
Sometimes it simply means not right now.
So how do we handle that?
Well, it goes back to that genuine connection you've built.
Okay.
If they're not ready to commit right this second, don't pressure them.
Okay.
Express your understanding offer to stay in touch. You might say something like, I completely understand these are big decisions and you need to feel 100% comfortable. I'm happy to answer any further questions and please don't hesitate to reach out if anything changes on your end.
It feels a lot more empowering than just like admitting defeat.
It is.
Yeah.
And it leaves the door open for future possibilities.
Exactly.
And remember, even if that particular interaction doesn't result in an immediate sale, you've gained invaluable experience and potentially started a relationship that could lead to opportunities down the road.
This has been so eye-opening. Like Coach Dan Gordon has really revolutionized the way I think about sales.
Good. I'm glad.
It's not about those high-pressure tactics. It's about building real connections and guiding people towards solutions that actually benefit them.
And that's what makes his approach so powerful.
Yeah.
He helps us shift from that transactional me versus them mentality to a more collaborative, how can we both win mindset.
Well, I'm excited to put these strategies into practice. But before we wrap up, I want to make sure that our listeners are walking away with like some actionable steps.
Yeah.
So what are some of those key takeaways?
Well, remember to savor every bite, Shift your focus from rushing to the finish line to guiding your prospects or colleagues through a series of smaller steps and celebrate those micro wins along the way.
So break down those larger goals into smaller, more manageable steps.
Exactly.
And the whole journey becomes more enjoyable.
Yeah, and never forget that emotions play a huge role in decision-making.
Right.
Connect on a personal level, build rapport, address those fears and concerns, and remember those buckets.
Those bucks.
Fill them up with likability, trust authority, and expertise before you even think about discussing price or asking for that final yes.
It's about laying that foundation first.
Exactly. And most importantly, remember that genuine human connection is at the heart of any successful interaction. It's about building relationships, not just closing deals.
You know, we spent the last 2 parts of this deep dive really exploring this shift, away from those high-pressure tactics toward a more human-centered approach.
Yeah, it's amazing, how much more effective we can be when we focus on building genuine connections.
Right.
And guiding people towards solutions that really benefit them.
Yeah, it feels more in line with professional growth.
Yeah.
Courage.
Yeah.
Boldness.
Totally.
It's about taking those risks to connect authentically.
It is.
But even when we embrace these methods, we can't avoid that one thing that just seems to be inevitable in sales.
What's that?
Rejection.
Oh, yeah.
How do we handle those no's gracefully?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And, Coach Dan offers some really incredible insights on how to reframe rejection.
Okay.
He reminds us that it's simply part of the process.
Okay. It's a natural part of the journey, not a reflection of our worth or our abilities.
It's so easy, though, to just take it personally,
It is. It's human nature,
Yeah.
but he encourages us to view rejection as an opportunity for growth and learning.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
Instead of dwelling on that no,
Yeah.
we should ask, what can I learn from this? What could I have done differently? How can I refine my approach for next time?
Exactly. It's about shifting from a place of self-doubt to a place of curiosity and continuous improvement.
Every no is a stepping stone to a yes.
That's it. And remember the power of persistence and resilience.
Yeah,
Every no gets you closer to that yes.
that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. And each interaction, regardless of the outcome, is a chance for us to learn and refine our skills.
This whole deep dive has just been a revelation for me.
I'm glad.
Coach Shane Gordon has completely changed the way I think about selling.
Yeah.
It's not about manipulating people into saying yes. It's about understanding their needs.
Right. Building those authentic relationships and guiding them towards solutions that actually make their lives better.
And that's the true essence of selling, isn't it?
It is.
It's about helping people, providing value, and making a positive impact.
And when we look at it that way, the whole process becomes, more enjoyable and fulfilling
For sure.
for everyone involved.
Yeah, I think our listeners are walking away from this deep dive feeling pretty empowered and inspired.
Me too.
Good. I'm glad.
But before we wrap up, these principles that we've discussed, savoring every bite,
Yeah.
building connections, embracing those counterintuitive strategies.
Yeah.
These can be applied to any area of our lives, not just in the context of sales.
That's so true.
It's about being more intentional,
Yeah.
more authentic in everything we do,
Absolutely.
whether we're in a sales meeting, networking, leading a team, or just having dinner with friends.
Exactly.
So as you go about your, day-to-day life,
Yeah.
remember to savor those interactions,
Yeah.
embrace the process, and approach every connection as an opportunity to learn, grow, and make a positive impact.
Well said. I think that's a perfect way to wrap up this deep dive.
Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
Stay curious, deep divers. I'm Marcus Harrison,
And I'm Nara Daniels.
and we'll see you next time for another insightful conversation.
Sounds good.
We hope you enjoyed the deep dive. Subscribe to the podcast for more deep dives as Nara and Marcus traverse the infinite exploration into the mind and soul of you. We'll see you next time on The Dive.